it's a late night here at the Soapbox, but there may be some people who join me. It's what, 2:43 in the morning here, so it's 2:43 in the morning here. I didn't get the opportunity to do shows early this morning, so I've been doing them this evening, so it is late here. I'm not sure who's going to be here. I know there are people in other time zones, but usually the larger segment of the people are functioning on US clock. But whatever, let's still do the news. It is what it is. My one of my dogs, Pitsu, the small Pitsu, what is it called? What is it called? The Shih Tzu Pitbull mix. He's in here on the chair, and hopefully he will sit there and just be quiet and not start messing with stuff. I felt bad for him because the other dog is on the couch and he was trying to be close to me, so I'll put him here. I've been doing a lot of stories on Venezuela, so I'm pulling back from slightly, and that's kind of a lie because the story is tangentially about Venezuela, even though it's dealing with what's taking place in U.S. politics. I guess you can say it's U.S. foreign policy. It's a little bit of both. There are two quick stories that I want to do. This is the first one. There's a second one that's going to be in the next video. I want to talk about the political reality of these stories, what they mean, if they mean anything at all. And I would put forth that they mean a great deal, at the very least the first one. The second one, less so, less maybe in the literal and more so in figuratively what it's saying. So the first story, take a look at this. Do you remember when, let's see, this was within my life range, even though I was a child. It was really, really young. I just kind of remember this. Do you remember? Let's take a look at this. I can't tell if you guys are hearing that, but I'm not seeing the audio for the desktop. Hold on, give me 1 second. Let me try to fix this. I don't know why it would be different now, even though it's been working fine before. Alright, let's try this one more time.
Hi, fellow Americans.
What the hell is going on? No. Alright. Let's try to do this in a different way. Not quite sure why this is not playing correctly. Well, tab's not muted, nothing's silenced. I can hear it just fine, but for whatever reason my desktop audio is not doing it. It's not catching it. Alright. Try this in a different way. Yeah, we'll try this in a different way. Alright, so I'm sorry guys, I'll scrub this out in the editing on this video. But usually I don't have issues with recordings, but for whatever reason, something is not happy. Alright, I used my mic audio. Let's do it this way. Don't have all day. Or for that matter, all night. Let's let this begin.
My fellow Americans, I have spoken to you from this historic office on many occasions and about many things. The power of the presidency is often thought to reside within this Oval Office. Yet it doesn't rest here. It rests in you, the American people, and in your trust. Your trust is what gives a president his powers of leadership and his personal strength. And it's what I want to talk to you about this evening. For the past 3 months, I've been silent on the revelations about Iran. And you must have been thinking, well, why doesn't he tell us what's happening? Why doesn't he just speak to us as he has in the past when we've faced troubles or tragedies? Others of you, I guess, were thinking, what's he doing hiding out in the White House? Well, the reason I haven't spoken to you before now is this. You deserve the truth, and as frustrating as the waiting has been, I felt it was improper to come to you with sketchy reports or possibly even erroneous statements, which would then have to be corrected, creating even more doubt and confusion. There's been enough of that. I paid a price for my silence in terms of your trust and confidence, but I've had to wait, as you have, for the complete story. That's why I appointed Ambassador David Abshire as my special counselor to help get out the thousands of documents to the various investigations. And I appointed a special review board, the Tower Board, which took on the chore of pulling the truth together for me and getting to the bottom of things. It has now issued its findings. I'm often accused of being an optimist, and it's true. I had to hunt pretty hard to find any good news in the board's report. As you know, it's well stocked with criticisms, which I'll discuss in a moment. But I was very relieved to read this sentence. The board is convinced that the president does indeed want the full story to be told. And that will continue to be my pledge to you as the other investigations go forward. I want to thank the members of the panel, former Senator John and former National Security, by submitting a report of such integrity and depth. They have my time taking to implement the board's recommendations. First, let me say I take full responsibility for my own actions and for those of my administration. As angry as I may be about activities undertaken without my knowledge, I am still accountable for those activities.
This is the Watergate speech. I mean, not Watergate speech, I'm sorry. This is the Iran-Contra affairs speech. This is mind-blowing politics. The president of the United States comes on, looks you in the face, and says, look, there was an investigation. Bad things took place. Illegal things took place. The board got to the bottom of it. But hey, I knew nothing about what took place. I am the president. My hands were off of this. I knew nothing about it, even though bad things did take place, and I applaud the board. That's an amazing thing for Ronald Reagan to come out here and say to the public. And understand what the Iran-Contra affair was. Ronald Reagan wanted to support the Contras that wanted to take down the Nicaraguan government. In supporting the Contras that wanted to take down the Nicaraguan government, Congress was against this, and Congress was against funding this operation. They were so insistent of being against it, they passed the Bolin Act. Now, Ronald Reagan, not being able to get funding from Congress to do something that he wanted to do, did what any president would do, was essentially ignore the fact that Congress said, don't do this, and decided to go around Congress. How did Ronald Reagan go around Congress, you may ask? I'm glad you asked that question. Ronald Reagan took up the clever and creative idea of selling weapons to Iran, who was supposed to be our enemies, and using that money to essentially fund the Contras, to take down another government. Now, understand what this means. This means that we are paying death squads in another country to take down a government that we don't particularly like, as if it's our business one way or the other, about how the government runs its affairs. This is amazing. Now, the catch becomes, there's still creatures that were involved in this that are still lurking around. One of which that was convicted of lying to Congress, backing these war crimes that we're taking in this kind of illegal activities that Ronald Reagan and his crew were engaged in, is this guy. This is Elliot Abrams. Now, Elliot Abrams was convicted to lying to Congress. And you can imagine that if somebody catches you doing something like this, your first response is to lie. Right here. So I wanted to get the specific thing that he lied about, which, all right, so right here. Not to mention, Elliot Abrams' career is even worse than just the lying to Congress. There's aspects of his career where in Guatemala, he was protecting a guy who was essentially committing literal genocide to the tunes of thousands. And as this guy committed genocide, he was defending this particular guy in Congress. Like, this is a particularly detestable character that Donald Trump is putting as a special envoy to Venezuela. That's who this guy is. But just so you can see what he got convicted of. This is Brown education. In addition, although Abrams told Secretary of State George Shultz that he should solicit funds for the Contras at the meeting with the Sultan of Brunei, Schultz declined to do so. As a result, Abrams requested an offshore bank account number from Fears and solicited the $10 million from Brunei's defense minister himself. The Sultan transferred the money and sent the State Department the flow cable. This is to confirm that the Senate Foreign Relations Committee... Oh, wait a minute. I missed something. This is to confirm... Sorry, the letters are small. This is to confirm that the defense... George Ibunu assures me of arrangements have been consummated. However, when John Kerry, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, asked if Abrams knew of the foreign country that financially supported the Contras, he replied, "I don't know, but not that I'm aware of, and not through us." Abrams pleaded guilty to 2 counts of withholding information from Congress in 1991. His plea was based on these 3 discussions with members of Congress. I'm putting this article so you can see it for yourself. He was sentenced to 2 years in probation in order to complete 100 hours of community service. However, in 1992, George H.W. Bush pardoned Abrams. This is not the least of his problems. Again, supporting illegal affairs in Nicaragua and lying about it, but it goes beyond that. So the nation, I'm trying to get the gentleman to come on to the show, Eric Alterman. Eric Alterman kind of makes a few points here. Abrams was forced to plead guilty. I went through that one. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg. As a member of George W. Bush's National Security Council staff, Abrams encouraged, according to credible reports, military coup against democratically elected governments of Venezuela in 2002, poisoning the U.S. relationship with that government once it returned to power. He also worked to subvert the results of the 2006 election in Pakistan territories, a move that ended up strengthening the most radical elements of Hamas and undermining, perhaps forever, the possibility of a democratic peace between Israel and Palestinians. By the way, if you get caught trying to foment a coup in a country, meaning if you're in a country and there's some external country that tries to literally foment a coup or instigate itself into your political affairs by either trying to pull members of your military, however it goes about it, what are going to be your relations? I'm not talking about Facebook and Twitter ads. I'm talking about real trying to impinge its politics into your affairs, either to constrain your behavior or change the behavior of your nation in somewhat of a violent way. What are your relations going to be with the country that is doing that? Are they going to be rosy and cheery, or are you going to be forever suspicious of that country? I suspect you're going to be forever suspicious of it, if you're being honest. But these are still relative misdemeanors in the Abrams dossier, paling in comparison to the role he played in the Reagan administration. As Assistant Secretary of State for Human Rights, Abrams sought to ensure that General Efrain Rios Montt, Guatemala's then dictator, should carry out acts of genocide. Those are legally binding words of Guatemala's United Nations-backed Commission for Historical Clarification against the indigenous people of the Ixil region of the Department of Quiche, without any pesky interference from human rights organizations, much less the United States government. This is a bad guy. When Donald Trump appoints this bad guy with a dossier like that, essentially a war criminal, new Trump appointee is a Iran-Contra convict who tried to cover up massacres of 1,000 civilians. That's the guy that's being appointed. Now, Gina Haspel has been appointed, who was, again, a torturer, known torturer. This is not hidden anymore. This is pretty overt. They understood what her record was before they put her in that office. And then this is the guy they put in that office. Now, the question becomes, why are you putting this guy in that office? And if you're putting a guy like that in that office, you're putting that guy in office for reasons. I've made this consistent argument that people are policy, that you put people in office when you have a very specific idea of what those people are going to do. Those people are almost, to some degree, weapons. In this case, you're putting somebody with a dossier of crimes and with, at the very least, a certain moral ineptitude where he can, for the most part, ignore any notion of morality and going about his affairs, and essentially go into the process of creating coups. That's what he's known for. That's what he's been doing. The director of the CIA, when it was Mike Pompeo, kind of made the point that they were trying to create a coup. All of this leads to this idea of a coup. The media establishment essentially gone along with the narrative. Even social media. Like, I am... Mark my words on this. One day, the United States just like any other country or nation or anything else, will come to an end, or at the very least hang low. I mean, it may be like Britain, and it just kind of contracts upon itself and just kind of low ebb. At that point, there will be people who are looking at the history of the United States in the same way that we picked over the history of the Soviet Union, and they will be able to identify how much lies and propaganda and this kind of gaslighting goes into what takes place for quote-unquote typical independent media. I'm fascinated by this, that the media, for the most part, can present a narrative that, upon any level of honest inspection, just falls apart. And yet they do it anyway. Donald Trump putting this guy in is putting this guy in for a very specific purpose. This guy has a very specific dossier. This is kind of like John Bolton. You don't put John Bolton in a position where you're trying to be peaceful. You put John Bolton in a position where you want a maniac. Same thing. He's putting a convicted criminal in as a weapon. And it's a signal of the intentions of Donald Trump with regards to Venezuela. Mind you, it's not like you needed a signal. Let's be very clear. The United States has gotten across that it was actively trying to foment a coup. And not just actively trying to foment a coup, it's pretending that the elected government of Venezuela doesn't exist. Just pretending. We're just going to pretend like the elected government that has the military backing is not the elected government that has military backing. We're going to just start talking to this random guy who we're going to now call the interim president. This is amazing. This is amazing. If they're putting Elliot in this position, they're putting him in this position for a reason. Be aware. Just saying. And it's not that you even needed this guy for that, to know that. But it makes it that much more plain. I'll put it that way. It makes it that much more plain. All right, I'm going to end this because I have one that I want to do immediately after this. And this one is gone far, far too long. This video should have been all of 10 minutes. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support the PayPal and Patreon. Thanks all. Let's see who's here. Trudy, you're up late. El Salvador is considered privatizing water, and I believe current government is communist. That's amazing, right? That's amazing. All right. I'll end this. I know, right? Famous last words. I'll end this. I'll see you guys in a few. This probably takes about 5 or 10 minutes for the video to flip, and I'll do the next one. Thanks all.